everybody. Good evening. My name is Alan, and I'd like to welcome you on behalf of the crew to another edition of Bridging Heaven and Earth. Again, tonight's show really is about love and joy, and I think you'll see that the guests tonight and the videos we have really exemplify the joy of living and the joy of loving. We have Ilona Selke with us tonight, who has written an extraordinary new book, Journey to the Center of Creation, about her experiences with life, with dolphins, with love, with communication, with growth, with ascension. Just an extraordinary book that really brings the reader into the world of transformation. And she's also co-director of the Living with Vision Teacher Training Institute. She's a dolphin communicator and just an extraordinary, joyful, and inspirational person. And she's brought with her some just magnificent footage, underwater footage of her swimming with dolphins, and just to watch their just exuberance, I think will really just lighten whatever load you have, whatever you're carrying into the show. Will loosen it and let it free and open your heart, which is really what this show is about. We've talked about it many times, and the show it's really about an open heart, about a oneness, an experience of love that wells up from within, which is what we're really made of. And I think that tonight's show will give you that experience, and you know, that's really what we're here to do. And you know, we'll have videos from I guess you're seeing the cover of the video now of Ilona. And so, as we normally do at this time, please join me in a meditation. And if you don't know how to meditate, just close your eyes or watch me meditate, and just try to quiet down and get ready for really an opening and joyful evening. So please join me. Thank you. So I think we'd like to start tonight's show with a video that Ilona and her partner Don Paris put together of Ilona swimming with the dolphins. And I think it's just, the footage will just really inspire us all. And so please, whenever it's ready, the video will begin. Thank you.
Of the ocean water, beneath the ocean waves, lies a secret. And hidden in the silence, in this vast expanse of inner and outer space, lives a species that can send us images and silent calls, asking us to understand, to go beyond, to see into worlds that you can only see with your inner sight. Who is it that can understand the silent call of images, the stream of pebbles strung together like pearls, giving us a message of meaning? The serene world of travel beyond the confines of time and space does exist. Oneness and union, blessing and ecstasy are within our reach of humanity. Can you follow? Can you hear the call of the dolphins? Can you see beyond what meets your eye? In one we are, in love we join, In ecstasy we play, and you can join us. Out of the depth of the ocean comes a message. Join our multidimensional family. Refine your 5 senses. Refine your sight so you too can see what lies hidden beyond the 5 senses. Your world is as you dream it. I can hear your images. I can see them. We can fly together in the inner worlds. I can show you. Your world is as you dream it. So trust that the images you hold in your mind are real and can create the world you can only dream of now.
Hi everybody, isn't that magnificent footage? So I'm with Ilona on the set. Hi Ilona, nice for you to be here.
Hi Alan.
So tell us a little bit about, how basically your so-called spiritual path began. I mean, start at this lifetime. Just start here. How did it go? You were born in Europe, right? And
I was born in the Himalayas.
in the Himalayas.
Yes.
Really? All right, then nothing need more be said.
And I was raised by parents from Germany, so eventually we went back to Germany. But my mother taught me alternate nostril breathing, where you breathe into your third eye, hold your breath, and breathe out. When I was 5, and she taught me yoga. No kidding.
Wow.
This was in the early 60s.
You had hippie parents.
No. I had completely normal parents. These were German parents.
Right.
And so that was the real beginning, and eventually I started noticing that I could see and feel things that other people didn't. Mm-hmm. And if people played footsie under the table, I kind of had a feeling for that, even though I couldn't necessarily see it. You see the wrong feet.
In other words, you were like kind of psychic from as far back as you can remember.
But I didn't know it. I thought that was just how everybody is, and it took me a while. My sister and I would start playing games. We would put our dolls at the end of our bed and would do mind blend, and in our imagination go to the same places and find out that we would
It wasn't
see
a
the
twin
same.
sister.
No, you're younger. So that was my beginning, and although let's say what I described to you wasn't a spiritual path and such,
no, obviously, right.
It's more the discovery that we're more than a 5-sense being, more than what meets the eye, and that our hearts and minds connect over distances at times, and so still I experienced that with my sister and other people, and I took that out into the wild with the dolphins, a natural tendency for receiving and perceiving thoughts.
How did you begin to get associated with the dolphins and take that experience into the water? How did that happen for you?
Well, twofold. One, they started showing up in the dream for me. I think a lot of people have that experience. The other one was that I went to SeaWorld, and I saw an orca perform, the kind of black and white, big toy-looking orca, and they make them perform tricks as though they're just animals, and really I felt an intense presence in the audience, and I really felt that we were doing them injustice, and they were captured in a relatively small tank, and I cried and I cried.
How old were you then?
This was about 7 years ago. You can figure the age.
I don't know, it's hard to tell. I don't know where to start or where
Whatever.
to... Yeah, right.
And,
but it wasn't like when you were 7 or 10.
No, this was just recently. And I vowed to find out what the whales, the cetaceans, the dolphins would be like in the wild.
So you didn't get a specific, like, this is horrible. You just felt something...
Oh, I felt like they were vastly intelligent, and we were utilizing them as animals, like show animals, and I really felt that they were way more intelligent, almost like a fax machine downloading information to me. It may have been a call from them, but I wasn't like specifically asking anything. I just felt it, like an emotional presence. And a lot of people get that,
Right.
being moved to tears in the presence of cetaceans. And so that was my beginning. And then we dedicated all our free time in the last 7 years, a lot of it, to go and travel to all places in the world to swim with dolphins in the wild.
In the wild, yeah.
And only in the wild. I mean, we did it once in captivity, and we got depressed. My
Really?
sweetheart lover husband, he cried. He came out of the water, and it was like having been with a human in a jail who was, you know, fed and told to perform. I mean, you wouldn't want your best friend to be there, right? So we don't
Right.
go there anymore. But we do
You know,
go
it's
in the
interesting.
wild.
I mean, I know you've seen the show. We had Anne
Yes,
from the Anne
West
West-Tickle from the Universal Cetacean Institute,
Yeah.
and there was a funny show for me because SeaWorld used to be one of my favorite places.
Oh,
and then
no.
she came on the show. I was like, oh my God, it was like a horror. I haven't been there since. It's just, like, I mean, it had such an effect on me, and I've gotten so many calls about that. So in other words, you feel the same way that, I mean, not only, see, when we did that show, we found out how the captures were done. I mean, it was so horrible.
Oh, you wouldn't want to be there.
Right, I mean, so, but even being there, even if they were captured in a nice way, you don't recommend. You say people should get out to be with them in the wild.
I always ask them, would you put your best friend, your brother, your sister, or your mother voluntarily into a petting zoo on an alien planet? Where they go, let me touch you. You don't do that to people in the marketplace. You don't go up to people in a mall and touch them all over and go, let me see who you are. Although, that's almost preferable to a lot of dolphins than the food. They love the love. So they live off of the social contact in the
I mean, there
captive
have been
situation.
some theories that they kind of volunteer to, you know, to bridge the gap between human and dolphin. And you don't experience that?
I've heard that. No, I think that it's as silly to say that as saying, you know, the person. I mean, it's like saying I would volunteer my friend to go to a petting zoo on an alien planet and say, well, we volunteered. We really want to educate them. I mean, we have so many great, like, shows like this or like Discovery Channel that you can view dolphins, or like videos where you can get an experience. And then going out in the wild is like a day and night difference. When they're in captivity, they almost become dull. They lose
Dull? Oh,
you know, like their telepathy and their feeling body reduces because they're in a little tank, and if they sonar against the concrete, it bounces off. So they reduce their own sonaring. And in the wild, they're like so full of joy, love, and they need a lot of beings around them. They're very pod-oriented, and they bond to such a degree that even humans who haven't seen them for like 20 years still think about the dolphins that they made contact with. And you don't have that in the captivity. They die off, they replace them. You know,
Yeah, I
the
mean,
average
they're-
expectancy is like 5 years.
Yeah, much
you know,
less than in the
35
wild.
to 40 in the wild, yeah.
Right.
So it's by far a reduced experience.
Yeah, everybody thinks there's only one of them. What's the Shamu, and there are
Number
32.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like, oh my God. You know?
Right. So going out in the wild was rather challenging because you don't have them right there, so you have to develop techniques, which you have to do in real life anyways, is how do you draw in people or things into your life? And I realized one major lesson by doing it the wrong way at first. I would imagine the dolphins far out there, and I would want to be with them. And I'd say, oh, please come and be with me, and it would be like a carrot in front of my eyes, right? So what I realized is you have to visualize and be in the feeling of what you want in the end result.
You want love, right? I mean, isn't
You
that-
want the connection, you want
Right,
to have them
right,
close by, right? You want them...
Right. You want to feel them, in
Right.
essence, right?
So what I would have to do is visualize them close by, and I would visualize them like swimming in 2s or 3s underneath of me, and that's actually what worked. When I sent that image out, they would show up and become the configuration of what I imagined. So I realized one immense lesson in life is if you want something, you have to be in the end result that you want, in the feeling of that already happening. So if you want a joyful relationship, it's best to visualize and be in that experience, and then you start setting up what would be called a morphogenetic field or resonant pattern. And invisibly, or somewhat in the less visible range, you do send out frequencies back into the universe, and it seeks a matching pattern. And dolphins are incredibly sensitive to that, and they will show up almost instantaneously. whereas humans tend to be a little slower. But the more tuned in the people are, the faster things show up for them.
Right.
Like,
as you're developing more subtleties, subtle energies are more available.
right, and so things happen faster. You know, for most people, seeing a thought manifest takes a number of days or weeks sometimes, or sometimes even months. And the more you practice it, the faster the feedback system is. So in terms of being with dolphins in the wild, I had to learn to create a state that would attract dolphins.
You mean almost like a vibratory state?
Yes, yes.
I mean, you had to be the vibration that would be
They
attractive
love-
to them and vice versa.
And they dislike people who are like rowdy, noisy. We've been out on boats with people who were drinking beer and just cajoling, and they stayed away from them. And they went to the ones who sent out love and ecstasy. And you know, this is something we could try here on the show right now.
You think dolphins can show up here? If they come swimming in here, that would be a first for Bridging Heaven and Earth, I must say. That would, if you could do that, that would make television history. We might be on Oprah.
Well,
if you could do that, you
We'll
would
be
be...
soon.
Not, they wouldn't take me with you, but they'd take you to Oprah.
All
If you could
right.
bring the dolphins into the studio.
well, actually, you know, we teach seminars and we teach imagery techniques. And at times, one time particularly, we had a very psychic woman there, and she didn't. We teach imagery transforming techniques, and she didn't know about our dolphin experiences. And she had closed her eyes. We did a meditation, and I walked up to her group, and when she suddenly opened her eyes, she said, "Ilona, I have to tell you something. There were all these dolphins around you." So see, she could see the dolphins. But that most people, and especially TV cameras, are only tuned to what the 5 senses perceive. I doubt that most TV cameras pick up auras.
Actually, our crew only is to 3 of the senses. They've even lost the... No.
No. They are the 6th sense people.
No, I understand.
They have their heart open here.
Right,
I noticed
I
that.
understand,
Yes. But in reality, all the physical lenses that we use, even in scientific research, only expand our 5 senses. They don't have machinery yet used in public that expands on the 6th sense. And so we have a paradigm of a 3-dimensional world because that's all we can see and touch, and that's all
Well, that's
science.
most people can see and touch.
Yes, of
Right,
course.
right.
Present company excluded.
Right.
Yes. So when we have only, like TV cameras that pick up only that part, we have to use ourselves, the other part of our perception. And see, dolphins have, let's say bottlenose dolphins, they have about 1,600 grams of brain versus humans who have an average of 1,200 grams of brain. And that's
And they
about...
use about 12, so you got
That's
a
right.
really
We
low...
use about 10% of the
right.
brain that we have.
Right.
So that's about 30% more brain mass than humans have for the bottlenose dolphins, the ones that you saw on the film show.
Right.
What do they do with their greater brain? See, when they are out in the ocean, they don't build anything. Like we use our mind to make physical things. I believe that they've taken their brain and developed it to perceive subtle dimensions. We did experiments where we projected images into the water. I projected a ball of light over to the right, and I said, if you, dolphin, can hear this, swim right through it. And he would come over and swim right through the ball of light. Then I'd put it
You
over
have a
there.
ball of light with a hole in it, like a donut of light.
No, I would imagine a spherical...
sphere, I see, and they, right.
And they would like...
Go right for it.
Right for it. And we put it in 10 different places, and they would swim right through it. Now, if we as humans could develop that part, the 90% of our brain we're not using,
Right.
and develop the 6th sense, we could access and see things, and, you know, something like, oh, there was a dolphin present, because I called on a dolphin in my imagination, let's say, and someone could see it. Now, then, we are operating on 6 senses or multiple realities, and, you know, of course there is the physical environment of air around here, so we probably wouldn't have a dolphin show up physically.
Right.
But we would have other beings show up, like dolphins or angelic beings,
Right.
that are ethereal.
Right.
And so in that sense, yes, we can create that, and some people have a stronger focus and are bringing in more energy than others, but we all can develop it.
So, I mean, and that's what a lot of your seminars and workshops do, is just try to open that experience for people.
Yeah, let's do something right now. It'll inquire...
Open something for me? Oh no, not that.
Oh, no. Look around the room wherever you are and just notice the colors that you notice. the feelings around you that you notice. Just take a moment and then close your eyes if you want to. And just think of 3 things that you're very grateful for in your life right now. 3 things that you're grateful for in your life. And then, as you slowly open your eyes again, take a look again around the room and just check out how it feels. Does it feel any differently now? How are the colors?
The camera people are still asleep, so no. Yeah, I do notice a difference actually.
What do
They're
you notice?
more vibrant.
That's what everybody says.
Right.
People say it's more
But I
vibrant.
always got to say the joke first. I mean, it's just the style.
Well, I think they're doing a great job.
No, I know.
But-
for people who are asleep, but no. Okay.
Ellen, really. People say they see more of a glow, they see more of a color.
So you think it's just like a simple openness technique or something
So-
like that, just to like switch on the grateful experience in
That's
a sense.
one small technique that you can use in order to create an opening of your frequency. Let's say you can go from level 1 to level 20 on a store, on a skyrise. You know, it's like rising to level 3 or 4. Do open your heart, think of things you're grateful for 3 times a day, and you'll create a very different life for yourself.
Right.
You start setting up a resonant pattern of love, and people will respond to you. And see, when you looked around your room, did you notice a difference? What people normally say is, it's glowing, it's softer, they feel more love for themselves. And what you do is you amp up your frequency. And that's what happens when you're around dolphins. They amp up their frequency, and if you happen to want to be around dolphins, you have to get to that space.
Well, I mean, like energy and vibrations. I mean,
Right. They're real things.
They're real things.
So
right.
dolphins use a large part of their brain to pick up on images, and they perceive thoughts as real things. They can practically see what we project as images. Roberta Goodman, an excellent researcher who worked with Dr. John Lilly, did a research where she projected images, 4 different images, into a tank miles away at night to the dolphins, and in the morning came to the pool and said, "What's up?" And she had projected 4 symbols: a half a heart, water, a dot, and a leaf. And the dolphin proceeded to swim half a heart in the pool, came back to her and said, "Did you get that?"
Really?
Then he went and squirted water in her face and looked again at her and said, "Did you get that?" Then he went over to the intertube and stuck his nose through the intertube and dotted it around. Normally he would take it with him and play with it.
Right.
Today he was just nosing it and just holding it.
Holding it as like a dot to
That's
show that.
it,
right.
exactly.
Right.
And it was a dot. And then he hung out his fin, and it was in the shape of a leaf, the way she had imagined it. Pretty amazing stuff.
So actually, I think maybe we're ready for the second video section. So let's just watch them a little bit.
All
What do you
right.
say? We ready for it?
I will show you myself. I will show you how to be joyful. I will show you how to touch, how to love, how to live in harmony with our world, how to let communion be what guides you in your daily life. What else do you need beyond love and communication with vastness of life that always is around you and within you? I come and play with you. Will you come and play with me? We can play together in this world of water, in this vast mystery of life. Can you try and see what I can see? Become like me, and we will fly freely in the outer and the inner worlds, and coincidences and synchronicities will increase in your daily life as you increase your own vibration, as you open your heart and see the beauty around you. Life is magnificent. And the design of life has many expressions. The form we have taken has surrendered the use of the fingers. We no longer do, and our sheer ecstasy comes from sharing our love with each other and traveling into hyperspace, surpassing the boundaries of time and space, looking, seeking to connect with you, letting you know that you can follow us.
Hi, well, we're back with Ilona. Why don't you tell us something about your experiences with telepathy and, you know, with the dolphins?
Yeah. One time I was out, the first time I was swimming with dolphins in the wild, I was fresh at swimming. I really am not an ocean person. I actually was very scared of the water. But being in the presence of dolphins, you just feel like you're in heaven on earth. You feel euphoric. I felt euphoric. Everybody does normally. And I swam with them for a long time. I tried things like imagining myself being with moms and babies, and all of a sudden the moms and babies would show up. And as we were out there, maybe an hour or so, my partner and another woman and myself were there. The dolphin suddenly sent a loud message into my head that said, "Get out of the water now. You have just enough energy to make it back." I write about it in my book. And what happened is, I heard it as a sentence. Normally I get images. But as I stuck my head out of the water to see if anybody else had heard the same message, the two other people stuck their heads out and heard identically the same thing, "Get out of the water now." So we swam back, and halfway back my leg started cramping up. I couldn't use it anymore. The current was coming out. I was getting panicky. And so when I finally got to the shore side, I tried to stand up out of the wave, you know, and the gravity just gets you down, pulls you back. I collapsed into the water. And if there had been waves flowing over me, bigger than what they were the day, I don't think I would have made it. So I crawled
So they
out.
almost knew precisely, I mean, to the second, how much energy you had left.
Since I listened to them, it was almost precisely to the second. I crawled onto the beach, totally exhausted, totally collapsed, and it was almost like they could assess my physical limits
Better than you could at that point.
better than any of the other people or myself. Yes, exactly.
Would you have listened to the other people as well?
I doubt it, because it was so strong.
It was so strong. It was so
and,
clear.
And the other two people heard the same thing. I mean, one person hearing it, it could have been my own intuition, my own inner body talking to me. They heard the same thing. So that was a pretty solid experience in terms of
And clearly it
getting
would
a
seem to be
message.
coming from the dolphins.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
Because we all heard it, and it was like, oh, what they did then is they'd been playing with us, and then they turned oceanside, swimming away. And then as soon as we turned inward to swim, because it's so hard to break from them, you want to be
Right.
with them. It's
Right.
like
You'd
they
almost
have a-
rather die than leave.
That's many people have said that. They
Right.
said, "Take me now."
Right.
Anyways, then they came back as soon as we'd made the decision and committed.
So
to
they
going
kind of
back.
swam back in with you.
Yeah,
Just as
partially.
long as you were doing that.
As long as I was going back,
in the
yeah.
right direction.
And another time, this was in captivity. There were dolphins, like 4 or 5 of them, in a small area, Kona side. And I said, "If you can hear me, could you spit some water into midair, and stick the water out of the head and spit water in the air?" And I visualized it maybe for a minute, the end result of what I wanted. Remember, that's the trick to life. And so, lo and behold, within a minute, a dolphin came to the middle and spit water into the air. Now, I'd watched them for 10, 15 minutes prior to that, and other people were around, and they just swum in circles. So it was a very distinct thing. And so I had, like one time I write about it, we were on the boat, and only one dolphin came to be with us. Sweetheart, I know him by heart. He was a juvenile, like he's probably 10 years old now. I loved him. He would always come and swim near me when I came into the water. Whereas Don, my sweetheart husband, Grandy, his mom would always swim with him. Year after year, she'd recognize him in the wild and go off 20 minutes, take him away. I didn't get jealous.
I was going to say, it sounds like some sort of wife swapping, interspecies wife swapping. I'm getting like embarrassed.
Oh,
No,
God. Well, you know, dolphins are not monogamous.
Oh, my God.
Contrary to popular belief.
This is a family show, so be careful. No,
All right. So at any rate, I swam with Sweetheart, so he comes up to our boat alone. So I said, oh, God, Sweetheart, we're 7 people. We want to swim with you. Could you go back to your family and get them to bring them back to us? And I heard in my head, it said something like, I'll be back in 15 minutes.
And you could almost set your clock by it. I mean,
Yeah, that's
15
how I
minutes.
felt like. It's like, okay, what time is it now? The dolphins swam away. Everybody sighed. It was like, oh, our only chance. It's, you know, you have to find them out in the wild.
Right.
It's not that easy.
Right.
So 15 minutes later, the whole pod came back.
Wow.
Mom, dad, babies, you know. And so dolphins understand us and hear us. There is a guy, Frank Robson, who has trained dolphins exclusively using telepathy. See, what my point is, and what I write the book about, is how we can actually do that in our daily life. How we can enter the other dimensions, like you say. And on the back of my book it says, how we co-create our own heaven on earth. It is through utilizing that intuition and the subtler perception. And it is by using our imagination that we train our intuition. If you want a technique to train your training wheels for intuition, use imagination on a daily basis. I give techniques on how to use imagination. Maybe we have some time to talk about the train story, you know, where I did the time jump.
Sure, absolutely.
We have that time now?
Yeah,
All right. Well, what happened is we were in Germany, Don and myself, and visiting a friend. And he's still a classical musician, and he was in the process of moving. When I called him from America, he told me that we could meet, and we made out a time when to meet at the train station, and he had to leave to a rehearsal within an hour's time. So I arranged to leave with a train in Germany that's supposed to be on time. And as we try to leave, we have a delay of about 20 minutes. As we keep going, we have more delays because now we had to let other trains get in front of us. So it added up to about a delay of 50 minutes along the way. And what happens to you when you get mad? I get steaming mad. I got so frustrated. We wanted to see our friend. I hadn't seen him for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to connect. And I was really angry and frustrated. And I took and did this process that I write about and that we teach in seminars. It's based on the work by Dr. Vernon Wolfe on holodynamics, where I took this red fireball out of my stomach that was like the representation of my anger and frustration. And I took it outside of myself and I projected it in front of me and started talking to it as though it was a real being. And I said, what do you really want? Now here's the trick to the universe. Everything, no matter how difficult or negative it may appear, has a positive intent. Everything wants something good, usually to be loved or understood or to express itself. So it wanted to make sure that we got to our friend on time and saw him. And the new image of that reality fulfilled, remember that being in the fulfilled reality, was a rainbow image with us greeting and hugging each other. And I took and appreciated the old image for trying to get us there. The frustration was an attempt at getting us there on time. And I transformed and moved the red image into the new image of the rainbow, and I felt better. Now the first thing is that your chemistry feels better, that your neurotransmitters start kicking in, and you feel good about life. I mean, that's a good enough thing already. But then we drove, and the clocks were showing on the side of the train stations that we were still late. We finally got to Stuttgart. As we got out, we had to go to a different area. We dragged our suitcases to the front and didn't expect to see our friend. We're on the front where big clock is now, and all of a sudden our friend comes walking towards us saying, Don, Ilona, you're early. We looked at the clock overhead and dropped our jaws. We don't have time zone changes in Germany. This was in August. We don't have winter and summer time change. There was no logistic explanation to the time jump, but it happened. And
so in other words, seemingly time slowed down or stopped or something because you were on time and you were never on time. You were always late.
it was almost as though we jumped into a parallel dimension. It looked like the same world. And I write about experiments like that in my book and how to do it yourself, because the physical universe, as quantum physicists say, doesn't exist in a single unit reality. It has, like, they say there's a quantum foam, and if you are able to focus on a particular pattern of frequency, that's the reality you will draw towards you, which is really what your show is about. And it is so true. You will actually resonate a new pattern of frequency that seeks out of all the potential possibilities of reality, your new one to match your internal experience. So I thought I'd try this a couple of times. I write a lot about experiments that go into this hyperspace reality. And I've had people...
Why don't you describe what you mean by hyperspace?
Well, basically, the reality that the 3D reality appears like it's a linear stream of reality.
That there's a time element and a space element.
Yeah, and science tells us that there isn't.
Right.
But it's so hard to comprehend in real terms. But through your imagination, you have access to almost creating blueprint patterns of reality. Now, it's, you know, the experiment we've done, we just did with a gratitude exercise. You have to raise the baseline frequency within yourself to enter the place of planning, that you may call it that, where you can design a holographic blueprint for your life. And once you're able to get to that place within, you can look upon reality and make a choice. And as Vern Wolf always says, and dip your cup out of the sea of potentiality.
In anywhere in your experience or in your way of looking at it, how would you describe surrender? Is there any part of surrender in there?
Yes. It is really the surrender of the personal self, the ego, or the identity that's the small self, to the higher forces. And that may be the frequency expression of who you truly are at your core, a God being in expression, or the creation, I call it God, or the source energy. It's the surrender to the vaster sea of life. We are not always conscious of all the things that are coordinated. And
But do we have, when we do that, do we have an end result in mind?
When we do...
When we surrender in that way, when we give ourselves over, do we have almost like a desire?
You can do it many different ways. There are different schools of thought on this planet. Apparently, for example, the Buddhist way is to say don't have any desire because that's the beginning of all suffering. There are the creationists that say create anything because it's happening anyways, so might as well partake with joy and fun. And if you are able to co-create heaven on earth, why not? Because we always create. Our subconscious mind always sends out resonant patterns. Our childhood memories...
If we're always gifted, are we creating? If we're grateful and gifted, at what point do we create? I mean, it's an interesting question.
Right.
I mean,
and the question is, what are we gifted by? Is it what we, at a different level, bring with us? See, we're not always conscious. The iceberg, example is like the tip of the iceberg is our conscious mind.
I always use the pyramid, and the four sides of the pyramid. Yeah,
and the bottom part may be other aspects of yourself you're not aware of that are drawing in other aspects. But what you can do is tap into that higher aspect and start listening to that inner voice and bring in the awareness of your greater self.
You don't think there's a problem with taking credit for creating these things? I mean, because that hits another area. I mean,
it's polarized by saying it's okay if we're victims. So if we're not taking credit for what we create, I can say this happened to me and it's just bad luck. And
do we have to call it bad?
Well, or it was good luck.
No, it was.
Okay. See, what happened...
this is on and on and on.
Right.
But I think it's just different ways of looking at the same thing. But ultimately, people want to experience the love. And love is what creates everything.
And it's the blockages that are in the way that you can uncreate, let's say, or speak to and find out what that blockage really wants, and transform it into its higher potential. And the question of whether we create or not, I think, is an example in everyday life. You set your mind to create a TV show and to bring information to people. I had a vision when I was young to help people access these subtle dimensions, and that's what I'm doing. We all had a dream, and we all have a vision, and if you don't have one, start making one up. What would your life be like if you lived what you truly wanted to? And then dedicate part of your life to that. If it's only 10 minutes of writing a poem every day, or even just words in a row, you'll find out deeper creative resources within yourself.
Just start, just open up.
And that's an ordinary creation process.
Right.
Now, all I'm saying is that we create on subtler dimensions that we're not consciously available about or conscious of. And just because we learn how to do that doesn't take away the magic of life, because there's always that plus factor. And there's always our aspiration to a higher source. So whether you create with your conscious mind and say, I'm going to write a book, or I'm going to help
I
and
just think that
donate
sometimes
time.
there's a problem with that, is that we take credit, which is, you know, doesn't end up helping us.
Well,
It feeds part of us that
It-
isn't ready to merge with the love, the infinite.
yeah.
I
And
mean, it's a funny, you know, it's like walking the razor's edge.
Exactly.
Grace and effort, grace and
Exactly.
effort.
And I do think that is that grace and effort work in our lives. I oftentimes feel that things that come my way are gifts from the universe, and I don't know how they happened. I didn't bring them about consciously. But nevertheless, we can co-create. And that's what I really think the trick is we co-create realities. And we might as well do our best. So in terms of being with dolphins, dolphins create a space of very, very high frequencies. And we as humans have a brain that is in need of expanding 90% more.
Right.
So what better use to use than to open up to that tip of the, bottom of the iceberg, to the other unseen dimensions, and start using telepathy with our loved ones.
Right.
And after the next piece, I can share
Yeah, I
a
think
story
we're
about...
ready for that clip. Yeah, why don't we watch the third clip with Ilona swimming with the dolphins, and just try to feel that vibration, just try to feel that love, just open up to it.
In higher
And then we'll be
dimensions.
right back.
Those will be able to travel with us into the realms of the One. We are in awe of the creation and the grand design that the creating source has surrounded us with. Everywhere we look, there is a miracle. A design so intricate and so immense. We are waiting for you. And we're willing to share with you all the knowledge and wisdom we have gained over the millions of years that we have traveled through the watery world. From our perspective, this planet is a planet of waters, a world for cetaceans and fish. But we realize that this world is a much vaster ecosystem. That you and us and many other creatures co-share the grand design of life, helping each other. Just as the frigate bird shows us where our food might be found, so do we help the frigate bird find its feast. There are currents of air that communicate with us their intent. Patterns of flight, patterns of light are all part of the grand design of which you are an intricate part thereof. Humans and their highest expressions of creative spirits angelic beings, all intermingling in one world. We can join you in your world. We can dance with you. Come and dance with us.
So now you're looking at the cover of Ilona's video of Dolphins in the Wild. And before I forget, and if I want to make sure we do it, if there's anybody who wants any information about the workshops Ilona does with her partner Don, or Ilona's book, which is available in all the big bookstores, please call me at 805-687-2053. That's Alan, 805-687-2053. And yeah, now I'd like to talk to Ilona a little bit about the remote viewing that a lot of the armed forces used. I'm familiar with, you talked about the Navy, but I know that other of the armed forces worked on it. Why don't you describe that experience?
Well, actually, that's something that the CIA, for example, has used in the training. They train their people in the use of imagery at a distance. We've
actually had some people on the show who've done that.
Really? Yeah. Yes. What I love about it is the end result. John McMoneagle, one of the top remote viewers in the country, said that when people have been trained in being able to perceive at a distance, they had to change their perception of reality to such a degree that they moved into a state of realizing that everything is one, and they could no longer work in the paradigm of fighting and warring.
Of opponents and conflict and separation.
Right. Exactly. Right. So my feeling is that as we develop our ability to use imagery, which is our doorway into the other dimension, we can almost like go through the wormholes of time into other places and communicate at a distance, and then realize how insignificant time and space as a separation really is. And we are able then to bend time and space in a way to realize that we are part of the oneness. See, I think that's part of the learning ground of learning how to use imagery in daily life. And what I'm hoping is that as we, as humans, develop more and more our intuitive mind, we become more aware of the oneness and feel it in everything that we do. The other night I dreamt of my sister, and she was in the middle of my dream calling out a sentence to me, to help her. I called her immediately the next morning, and she said, right around that time, those are actually the exact words that she was saying out loud to me in her world out in Germany.
Really?
Yes.
And she wasn't just thinking it, she actually had said it and you heard it.
And I heard it. Yeah. And I woke up from it, it was so loud.
Wow.
There was another one where I wanted a woman who was going to visit us potentially in Hawaii. We just came back from Hawaii, swimming with dolphins there. And I said, you
do a lot of workshops, and you live half the time in Hawaii, right? Half the time in Washington State.
Yes, and we do our teacher trainings for the Living from Vision course in Hawaii. We also have the video self-study course, but we do the teaching usually in Hawaii. And I said, you have got to call me or email me. And she was in Hong Kong, somewhere on QE2, the big boat.
Right.
And so in 24 hours, she emailed me and said, I'm flying in and here's the time. It's very convenient to have telepathy working at times. Right. But when we were out I told you about the Navy doing the experiments. The
sonar experiments they're doing in Hawaii now. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on the internet. I mean, I'm getting emails from all over to, write this congressman or write that congressman. So a lot of people are really getting upset about it. And actually dolphins are starting to beach, I understand, and whales. Yeah, whales.
So what is happening right now is the Navy is trying to see if they can fill the ocean with sound, which is at 30 hertz, supposedly below hearing level. That's below human hearing range. At 250 decibels, which is, different places say different things, but like something like 1,000 747s taking off that loud. And the whales are obviously very, very sensitive creatures, so are the dolphins, and they respond by fleeing away from the sound or beaching themselves, and the Navy is trying to watch for signs like that. Now, eventually, they're intending on planting this sound all over the ocean, whereas whales need the quiet space to send their messages around the world. I don't want to see our world come to the place where, with Starship Enterprise, you know, they had to import from another time zone a humpback whale because this other thing came looking for the signal. See, dolphins and whales have a significant developed brain mass and have capacities that we don't have as humans yet. And if we go and study with them, learn from them, like I did in nature, in the wild with them, and I wrote about how to apply it into daily life. If we don't listen to them, who are we going to learn from? We think we're the crown of creation, and yet we have master beings, truly, living right side by side with us. The Greeks called them the angels of the sea. So does John Lilly. He actually says they're the humans of the sea. They're the equivalent of what we are on land. And if we learn from them in the time to come, and actually there's an Aborigine legend that is going to be aired in the Omnidome show Eyes of the Soul. So if you have a chance to see, you know, the Omnidome,
yeah, right.
yeah, it's called Eyes of the Soul. It'll be in the future still, but it's the Aborigines tell that when the end time comes, humans will start listening, and if they do start listening to the dolphins and the whales.
There are a lot of prophecies like that. Yeah, the Hopis.
Yes,
and the, right.
but especially if they start interacting with the cetacean world, there is hope, because it's a sign that we're opening up to higher frequencies and higher dimensional capacities as humans. So that's what we need to do. We need to be able to learn or somehow access those other parts. And the gratitude exercise that we talked about just a moment ago, or just plain out talking with your dog in your mind or your cat, talking to the tree, sitting there and expanding yourself when you go through a forest, and pretend as though your entire field of feeling can stretch between the tree trunks and touch everything in between. You become a larger being and you start picking up information that otherwise remains hidden from the five senses. See, we need to expand, and dolphins are masters at that. And that's what I believe our next evolutionary step as humans is, which we need to do, is become whole-brained. We've emphasized our rational mind, and now...
You mean not just left brain or right brain, but just the whole thing just start expanding.
Yes,
so.
Which gives us, when we use both brain halves, you know, they've done studies with brain mapping. If we harmonize left and right side, and the limbic system, which is your feeling brain, the old brain stem, you go into a hyper jump, and you're able to do things that have been out of reach before. And those are some of the things I write about. And I do believe that we are designed to co-create in life, and that we're co-creating to co-create the highest possible. And
Heaven on earth.
Heaven on earth.
So, I mean, how would you... See, to me, it's like until people truly experience in their heart the oneness, then all these other things are going to happen. The sonars are going to happen. The cutting the trees are going to happen. Because we don't respect it. We don't experience it as ourselves, in a sense.
That's right. I believe that that's what we need to do to stop that. It's almost like the sonaring that the Navy is doing as a wake-up call to all of us to say, let's listen to wise beings, let's expand our hearts, our minds, learn something from them, and change our future. I was on a beautiful radio show this morning, and the host said something like, do you think we can affect how the millennium turns out? And I felt that we can. You've heard about the TM group that was flown to DC, and they had like a few hundred of them planted all over DC, and they would start meditating, and they measured the crime rate statistically before and after 3 weeks, and the crime rate had dropped by like 30-some%. Even down to 50. There was even...
Except among the TMers, they would know. I'm kidding.
Even among the TMers.
Right. I know a lot of TMers.
All right, but it is an exercise to see how much the inner vibration that we send out actually will affect the resonant frequency around us. So if the Navy is doing whatever they're doing, we can bring in a different frequency. You know, imagine in our hearts that they too have a heart that reaches to their higher potential. And in our minds, maybe imagine that they're reaching to a higher space and want to bring harmony. We just all need to wake up and do that together.
All right, so I guess, you know, the show's coming to an end, so I don't know, I mean, it's just gone by so fast as they all do, and we're just so thankful that Ilona came with us and brought the tapes and the videos. And so, you know, thanks for watching. It's just been an extraordinary experience for me. Good night. God bless you.